In a world where instant gratification rules our daily choices, where a single tap on our phones can bring fleeting joy, it's easy to mistake convenience for happiness. But have you ever stopped to wonder why, despite having more comfort and entertainment at our fingertips than ever before, true contentment often feels out of reach? The Stoics, some of the greatest thinkers of ancient philosophy, believed that happiness wasn't found in indulgence or escapism, but in something far deeper, the unshakable inner peace that comes from mastering yourself. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This video will explore how self-discipline is not just a key ingredient but the very foundation of Stoic happiness, a happiness rooted in clarity, purpose, and tranquility. Let's uncover why self-discipline isn't about restriction but freedom, and how embracing it can transform your life. What if you could control your emotions instead of letting them control you? Imagine the kind of freedom that would bring. The Stoics believed that true liberation didn't come from indulging every desire, but from mastering them. They saw impulses, the sudden urges to react, consume, or chase after fleeting pleasures, as obstacles to clarity and peace. Epictetus, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, once said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." In other words, it's not the events or temptations outside of us that truly hold power, but how we choose to respond to them. Think about how often we act on impulse in today's world. A notification pops up on your phone, and before you know it, you've spent 20 minutes scrolling. Or you feel a twinge of boredom, and suddenly you're reaching for snacks you didn't even think about 5 minutes earlier. These small actions might seem harmless, but over time they pull us further away from the life we truly want. The Stoics would argue that every time we give in to an impulse without thought, we become a little less free, because our choices are no longer deliberate but dictated by fleeting emotions or distractions. On the other hand, resisting those impulses strengthens our self-discipline and, in turn, our sense of inner peace. When you decide not to check your phone during a meaningful conversation, for instance, you're prioritizing connection and presence over distraction. Or when you pause before reacting angrily to someone's harsh words, you're choosing to maintain your composure instead of letting someone else's behavior dictate your mood. These small acts of self-control may seem insignificant in the moment, but they build the foundation for a life of purpose and balance. Let's take a modern example to illustrate this. Imagine you're working on an important project when you feel the urge to take a break and browse social media. The Stoic approach to this scenario would involve pausing to evaluate that impulse. Is this a momentary craving for distraction, or is it truly time for a productive break? By questioning the urge, you reclaim control over your actions instead of letting a habit or an external trigger dictate your behavior. This simple act of resisting an impulse can help you stay focused, complete your task, and avoid the frustration that often comes with procrastination. The Stoics taught that mastering impulses isn't about deprivation. It's about alignment, aligning your actions with your deeper values and goals instead of letting short-term desires pull you off course. And here's the thing, the more you practice this kind of self-discipline, the easier it becomes. Just like strengthening a muscle, each time you resist an impulse, you're training yourself to respond thoughtfully rather than react automatically. So, how often do you pause to reflect on your actions, and how often do you act on autopilot? By cultivating self-discipline, you're not just fighting against distractions or temptations, you're creating space for true freedom. Freedom to choose your path, to live with intention, and to find the kind of happiness that can't be swayed by external events. For the Stoics, virtue wasn't just an abstract idea, it was the blueprint for happiness. They believed that a life well lived was one rooted in virtue, and that true contentment could only come from knowing that your actions align with your deeper values. But here's the catch: living virtuously doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentional effort, thoughtful choices, and most importantly, self-discipline. Without discipline, even the best intentions crumble under the weight of temptation, fear, or convenience. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Each of these virtues, in some way, demands self-discipline to practice. Temperance, for example, is all about moderation, not indulging in excess even when it's tempting. Justice requires us to treat others fairly and keep our commitments, even when it's inconvenient or when no one is watching. Courage means choosing what's right over what's easy, even in the face of fear or discomfort. And wisdom, it's the ability to navigate life's challenges with reason and clarity, which is impossible without the discipline to pause, reflect, and act deliberately. But why is virtue so central to Stoic happiness? Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it beautifully: the happy life is one which is in accordance with its own nature. In other words, happiness isn't about accumulating wealth, achieving status, or avoiding hardship. It's about living in harmony with your true self, your rational, ethical self, and that harmony is only possible through virtue. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine you've promised a friend you'd help them move, but when the day arrives, you're exhausted and tempted to cancel. It would be easy to justify backing out, telling yourself they'll understand or that it's not a big deal. But justice as a virtue would call you to honor your word. Courage would help you push past the discomfort of your exhaustion, and temperance would remind you not to let your desire for convenience outweigh your commitment to a friend. In this scenario, self-discipline is the thread that ties it all together. It's what enables you to follow through on what you know is right, even when it's hard. Now, think about how this applies to your own life. Are there areas where your actions don't quite align with your values? Maybe you value integrity, but find yourself bending the truth under pressure. Or perhaps you strive for fairness, but notice moments when impatience or frustration gets the better of you in your interactions with others. These gaps between values and actions are where virtue, and by extension, self-discipline comes in. The Stoics weren't perfect, and they knew no one would ever embody virtue flawlessly. But they believed in striving toward it every day because each step toward virtue is a step toward a more fulfilled and meaningful life. It's not about never failing, it's about consistently trying to do better, using self-discipline as the tool that bridges the gap between intention and action. So take a moment to reflect. In what areas of your life could you align your actions more closely with your values? What commitments have you made to yourself or others that deserve more of your focus and effort? By practicing self-discipline in service of virtue, you not only cultivate inner peace but also earn the deep, lasting happiness that comes from living with integrity. Picture this: you've had a long day and the thought of exercising feels unbearable. So you skip it and promise yourself you'll work out tomorrow. Or maybe there's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, one that feels uncomfortable but necessary. Instead, you push it aside, telling yourself it's not the right time. Sound familiar? These moments of avoiding discomfort might seem harmless in the short term, but over time they can leave us feeling stuck, unfulfilled, and even weaker in the face of life's challenges. The Stoics, however, saw these very moments as opportunities not to avoid discomfort, but to embrace it as a tool for growth. One of the core principles of Stoicism is the idea that enduring hardship, rather than running from it, builds resilience and strengthens character. Marcus Aurelius put it best when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very obstacles we face are what shape us if we choose to confront them. Discomfort isn't something to fear or dodge. It's something to lean into because it's where we develop the mental and emotional strength to thrive. Think about it like this: muscles only grow stronger when you push them through resistance. The same principle applies to your mind and character. Avoiding discomfort might feel good in the moment, but it robs you of the chance to build the resilience that allows you to face life's bigger challenges. On the other hand, every time you willingly endure something difficult, you become a little tougher, a little wiser, and a little more prepared for the future. The Stoics even practiced voluntary discomfort to cultivate this strength. They believed that by intentionally stepping outside of their comfort zones, they could better handle whatever hardships life threw their way. For example, some Stoics would practice fasting, not because they didn't have access to food, but to remind themselves that they could endure hunger and still thrive. Others would expose themselves to cold weather or sleep on hard surfaces as a way of training their minds to remain steady and composed no matter the circumstances. Now, how does this apply to modern life? Consider a simple practice like taking a cold shower. It's uncomfortable, there's no denying that, but by taking that moment of discomfort head-on, you're training yourself to resist the urge to avoid what's unpleasant. You're telling your mind, I'm in control, not the discomfort. Or think about fasting not in an extreme way, but perhaps skipping a meal once in a while. Not only does it build self-discipline, but it also reminds you that your happiness and well-being are not dependent on constant indulgence. But embracing discomfort isn't just about physical challenges. It can also mean choosing to have that tough conversation you've been putting off, or tackling a project you've been procrastinating on because it feels overwhelming. These are moments where self-discipline allows us to face temporary unease in exchange for long-term growth. So, here's something to reflect on. What discomfort might you embrace today to grow stronger tomorrow? Is it sitting with a difficult emotion instead of distracting yourself? Is it stepping outside of your routine to challenge your body or mind? Whatever it is, see it not as something to dread, but as an opportunity to strengthen your resilience. Because as the Stoics understood, happiness isn't found in avoiding hardship, it's found in the strength and freedom we build by embracing it. Let's consider a situation you've likely faced before. You're stuck in traffic, already late for an important meeting. You grip the steering wheel tighter, glance at the clock on the dashboard, and feel frustration bubbling up. The cars aren't moving, the clock is ticking, and your mind races with worst-case scenarios. What will your boss think? Will this ruin your chances for that opportunity you've been working toward? But here's the question: does your stress or frustration actually change the situation? Does it make the traffic disappear or somehow help you get where you need to be faster? Of course not, and yet this is where so many of us find ourselves pouring energy into things we can't control, only to end up more stressed, anxious, and helpless. The Stoics had a profound insight into this human tendency, and they offered a simple yet transformative solution. Focus only on what is within your control and let go of everything else. This principle, often referred to as the Dichotomy of Control, appears throughout Stoic writings, but one of its clearest expressions comes from Epictetus, who said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." According to this idea, we have control over our thoughts, actions, and choices, how we respond to the world. But external events, the actions of others, and outcomes, those are beyond our control, and the harder we try to control the uncontrollable, the more we suffer. Let's return to that traffic jam. While you may not control the flow of cars or the time you'll arrive, you do control how you react. Instead of stewing in anger or panic, you could use that time to practice patience, listen to an audiobook, or even take a few deep breaths to center yourself. It's not about ignoring the frustration entirely, but about choosing how you respond to it. This shift from focusing on external circumstances to focusing on your internal state requires self-discipline. It's a skill that doesn't come naturally to most of us, but it's one that can completely transform the way we experience life. Here's another example. Think about pursuing a big goal like applying for your dream job. You can control the effort you put into crafting your resume, preparing for the interview, and showing up as your best self. But you can't control whether the hiring manager chooses someone else or whether the role gets filled before you even have a chance. If you fixate solely on the result, whether you get the job, you risk spiraling into disappointment if things don't go your way. However, if you focus on what's within your control, like doing your preparation well and learning from the experience regardless of the outcome, you not only grow stronger but also protect your peace of mind. This principle isn't about indifference to external events. It's about clarity and perspective. It's about recognizing where your power lies and refusing to let factors outside that realm dictate your happiness. Self-discipline is what allows you to continuously remind yourself of this distinction, especially in emotionally charged situations. It's the ability to pause, reassess, and direct your energy toward what you can influence, rather than wasting it on what you can't. So here's a question to ask yourself. Are you spending energy on things outside your control? Maybe it's an argument where you're trying to change someone else's behavior, or worrying endlessly about how a situation will turn out. What if instead you redirected that energy toward your own responses, actions, and mindset? The next time you're faced with a challenging situation, try this. Stop and ask yourself, what part of this is truly within my control? Focus on those aspects and let go of the rest. It may feel difficult at first. Our minds love to cling to what-ifs and worry. But over time, this practice can bring a profound sense of peace and freedom. Happiness, according to the Stoics, isn't about controlling the world around you. It's about mastering the only thing you truly can yourself. And self-discipline is the key that unlocks this door. At the heart of Stoicism lies a profound yet simple principle: living in agreement with nature. But what does that really mean? To the Stoics, it wasn't about retreating to the wilderness or rejecting modern life. It was about understanding and aligning yourself with the natural order of the world. This means accepting the inevitability of change, embracing impermanence, and striving for balance rather than excess. The Stoics believed that true happiness comes not from resisting life's natural rhythms, but from flowing with them, much like a river effortlessly follows its course without fighting against the rocks and currents. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he said, "Observe how all things are born from change. See the nature of the universe and regard it as flowing, constantly renewing itself." Life, by its very essence, is in a constant state of flux. Seasons change, circumstances evolve, and nothing remains static. When we fight against this reality, clinging to what's comfortable or resisting what's uncomfortable, we create unnecessary suffering. But if we discipline ourselves to accept these cycles, we can find peace even amidst uncertainty. Self-discipline plays a crucial role in living in harmony with this natural order. Consider overindulgence, whether it's in food, material possessions, or even distractions like social media. When we constantly seek more, we disrupt the balance that nature thrives on. Nature operates through moderation. Plants grow, bloom, and rest in cycles. Animals take only what they need to survive. But as humans, we often let our impulses push us toward excess, believing that more is better. The Stoics, however, urged restraint. They believed that by practicing moderation, we not only respect the natural balance around us, but also cultivate inner harmony. For example, think about your daily life. Do you ever find yourself eating not because you're hungry, but because the food is there, or scrolling endlessly on your phone, even though it's not adding any real value to your day? These small moments of overindulgence might seem trivial, but over time, they pull us farther away from the contentment that comes from living simply and intentionally. Self-discipline in these cases isn't about depriving yourself, it's about pausing to ask, is this really adding value to my life, or am I disrupting my balance? Gratitude is another practice that helps us align with nature. By appreciating what we already have, we shift our focus from constantly striving for more to embracing the present moment. The next time you're tempted to chase after something new, a gadget, a promotion, or even validation from others, try instead to pause and reflect on what you already have. Ask yourself, do I need this to be happy, or am I overlooking the abundance I already possess? Gratitude grounds us in the natural rhythm of life, reminding us that fulfillment isn't found in endless consumption, but in appreciating the here and now. So, how can we begin to weave these Stoic ideas into our daily lives? One practical way is to start small. For instance, you might practice moderation by eating only until you're satisfied instead of full. Or you could set limits on how much time you spend on distractions like your phone, choosing instead to be fully present with loved ones or immerse yourself in a meaningful activity. And when challenges arise, when plans fall apart or life takes an unexpected turn, remind yourself that change is as natural as the tides. Resisting it only creates tension, but accepting it allows you to move forward with grace. Take a moment to reflect. How well do your actions align with the natural flow of life? Are there areas where you're clinging too tightly to control, resisting change, or chasing excess? By practicing self-discipline to embrace balance, moderation, and gratitude, you can begin to live more in tune with the natural order, and in doing so, discover a deeper, more enduring sense of peace. What if your daily routine was the foundation of your happiness? The Stoics believed that the way we spend our days shapes the kind of life we lead. They saw daily habits not as mindless repetition, but as powerful tools for cultivating a life of purpose, focus, and inner peace. Through self-discipline, routines anchor us in stability, giving us a sense of order amidst the chaos of everyday life. Seneca, the famed Roman Stoic, spoke about the importance of structure, saying, "Let all your efforts be directed to something, let it keep that end in view." It's not activity that disturbs people, but false conceptions of things. In other words, a deliberate routine allows us to channel our energy toward what truly matters, rather than wasting it on distractions or reactive behaviors. Think about how often we start the day without a clear plan, letting emails, social media, or other demands pull our attention in every direction. When we live like this, it's easy to feel scattered, overwhelmed, and at the end of the day, unfulfilled. The Stoics understood that crafting intentional habits helps us guard against this chaos. A thoughtful routine creates space for reflection, focus, and deliberate action, essential ingredients for a balanced and meaningful life. Take the idea of a morning ritual, for example. Instead of immediately diving into the noise of the world, checking notifications, scrolling through the news, what if you started your day with a practice that sets the tone for calm and clarity? Maybe it's as simple as spending 10 minutes journaling, reflecting on what's within your control that day, and identifying your priorities. Or perhaps it's taking a few deep breaths and reading something inspiring, like a passage from Marcus Aurelius * Meditations *. These small acts might seem insignificant, but over time they become the foundation for a disciplined mind. They embody the Stoic principle of temperance, helping you resist the lure of distractions and focus on what truly matters. Let's look at another example, setting aside time each evening for reflection. Seneca often spoke about the value of reviewing one's day, asking questions like, "What did I do well? What could I have done better? Did I act in alignment with my values?" This habit isn't about self-criticism, it's about growth. By examining your actions and choices, you reinforce a sense of accountability and ensure you're staying true to your principles. In today's fast-paced world, taking even a few minutes before bed to reflect on your day can help you reconnect with your goals and reset for tomorrow. But routines don't have to be rigid or complicated to be effective. Even small, consistent actions can bring meaningful change. For example, dedicating just a few minutes each day to gratitude can shift your perspective, helping you focus on what you have rather than what you lack. Or committing to a short period of physical activity, whether it's a walk, stretching, or a workout, can strengthen not just your body but your mental discipline as well. Over time, these seemingly small habits compound, creating a ripple effect that transforms both your mindset and your daily experience. So, here's something to consider. What small change in your routine could have a big impact on your life? Maybe it's setting aside time each morning for quiet reflection, or choosing a specific moment each day to step away from distractions and recenter yourself. Whatever it is, remember that routines are less about perfection and more about consistency. The Stoics understood that the disciplined repetition of simple, meaningful actions creates stability, fosters resilience, and ultimately leads to a happier, more intentional life. By building routines that embody Stoic principles like temperance, focus, and self-awareness, you create a solid foundation for navigating life's challenges. And perhaps more importantly, you create space for the kind of happiness that isn't dependent on external circumstances, but grows from within, one small habit at a time. Have you ever felt completely at the mercy of your emotions? Maybe it was a wave of anger after an argument, or a sense of crushing disappointment when something didn't go your way. In those moments, it can feel like emotions control us, dictating our reactions and decisions without giving us the chance to pause and think. The Stoics, however, believed that while we can't always prevent emotions from rising within us, we can choose how we respond to them. And this choice, they argued, is where our power lies. At the core of Stoic philosophy is the idea that self-discipline is the key to emotional stability, a way to maintain grace and control even in the face of life's challenges. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This principle is the foundation of Stoic emotional resilience. The Stoics understood that emotions aren't inherently bad. They're natural responses to our perceptions of the world. But when we let those emotions govern our actions, we surrender our peace of mind. Self-discipline, however, allows us to step back, assess our feelings, and choose a response that aligns with our values rather than our impulses. So, how does this work in practice? Imagine you've been overlooked for a promotion at work. It's natural to feel disappointed or even angry. But without discipline, those emotions might lead to rash decisions like lashing out at a colleague or doubting your self-worth. On the other hand, with self-discipline, you can pause and reframe the situation. Instead of dwelling on what you can't control, the decision itself, you focus on what you can, like asking for feedback to improve or reaffirming your commitment to long-term personal growth. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings, but rather acknowledging them and intentionally steering your actions toward a more constructive outcome. Mindfulness is a powerful tool the Stoics would likely embrace for fostering this kind of emotional discipline. By practicing mindfulness, you develop the ability to observe your emotions as they arise without immediately acting on them. The next time you feel frustration, for example, try taking a moment to simply name the emotion and notice how it feels in your body. This simple act of observing creates space between you and the emotion, reminding you that you are not your feelings, you are the one experiencing them. This shift in perspective helps weaken the grip of overwhelming emotions, giving you room to respond thoughtfully. Reframing is another Stoic technique that can transform how you handle emotional challenges. The Stoics were masters of looking at situations from a different angle, often finding opportunity or growth in adversity. Let's say someone criticizes you unfairly. Instead of letting anger or defensiveness dominate, you could view the situation as an exercise in patience and self-restraint, an opportunity to practice the very virtues you're striving to develop. Or if you're facing a setback, you might ask yourself, what lesson can I take from this? How can this experience make me stronger? By reframing challenges as opportunities, you not only manage your emotional responses but also grow from the experience. Now, it's worth noting that emotional stability doesn't mean you never feel upset or shaken. The Stoics weren't emotionless robots. They experienced grief, anger, and frustration like anyone else. The difference was in how they responded. They saw emotions as signals, not commands, and used self-discipline to ensure their actions aligned with reason and virtue. So here's a question to reflect on. How do you respond when emotions threaten to overwhelm you? Do you react in ways that you later regret, or do you take a step back to process and respond deliberately? The next time a strong emotion arises, pause and ask yourself, what's within my control right now? This simple act of discipline can transform not just how you handle difficult moments, but how you experience life as a whole. Emotional stability, after all, isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning how to remain grounded while they pass. And self-discipline is the anchor that keeps you steady. Think about how much of your life is shaped by what others think of you. Maybe it's the pressure to post the perfect photo on social media, the need to meet society's ever-changing standards of success, or the fear of disappointing people around you. It's exhausting, isn't it? We've all felt the weight of seeking approval, constantly chasing external validation to feel worthy or accomplished. But here's the thing, no matter how much praise or recognition you receive, that sense of fulfillment often fades quickly. The Stoics understood this struggle deeply and taught that true contentment comes not from the opinions of others, but from living in alignment with your own values and principles. And the key to breaking free from the need for external validation, self-discipline. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it plainly, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. What he meant was that in the pursuit of your own growth and authenticity, you might face criticism or judgment from others, and that's okay. To the Stoics, the opinions of others were outside our control, and placing too much weight on them was a recipe for unhappiness. Instead, they encouraged practicing self-discipline to focus inward, trusting your own judgment and values over the fleeting approval of others. Let's explore this idea with an example. Imagine you've always dreamed of starting your own business. It's something you feel passionate about and aligns perfectly with your strengths and goals. But as soon as you share this dream, you're met with skepticism. Friends and family might say it's too risky or wonder why you'd leave a stable job. In this moment, the temptation to seek their approval could stop you in your tracks. You might second-guess yourself, wondering if their doubts mean you're making the wrong choice. But this is where self-discipline becomes a lifeline. By grounding yourself in what truly matters to you, your own values, vision, and sense of purpose, you can push past the need for validation and stay committed to your path, even in the absence of external praise. Self-discipline builds inner confidence because it rewires your focus from external rewards to internal alignment. Instead of asking, "What will others think if I do this?" you start asking, "Does this align with my principles? Am I proud of the effort I'm putting in?" This shift is liberating. When you stop measuring your worth by how others perceive you, you become free to pursue goals that resonate with who you really are, not who others expect you to be. Consider another scenario: social media. It's so easy to fall into the trap of curating your life for likes, comments, and follows, where your sense of accomplishment depends on how others respond. But a Stoic approach would encourage you to ask, am I acting in a way that reflects my values, or am I chasing validation from strangers? Self-discipline helps you step back, recognize this tendency, and redirect your energy toward creating a life you genuinely enjoy offline and on your own terms. Epictetus also taught that the opinions of others often stem from their own biases and limitations, not an objective truth about you. Why then should their approval hold more weight than your own judgment? This doesn't mean you ignore advice or feedback entirely. Wisdom lies in being open to learning while still maintaining trust in your core values. Self-discipline helps you strike that balance, staying receptive to ideas but filtering them through your principles rather than blindly adopting them for approval. So take a moment to reflect. How often do you prioritize others' opinions over your own principles? Are there dreams or decisions you've put aside because you feared being judged? What would life look like if you focused less on how your choices are perceived and more on whether they align with what truly matters to you? By cultivating self-discipline to detach from the need for external validation, you can build a life that's authentic, purposeful, and guided by your own inner compass. And in doing so, you'll discover a kind of happiness that no amount of external praise can ever provide. Imagine standing at a crossroads. One path leads to constantly chasing more success, more possessions, more recognition, while the other path asks you to pause and savor what you already have. Which path would you choose? In a world that often glorifies ambition and endless striving, it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of the next big thing. But how often does this chase leave you feeling truly fulfilled? The Stoics warned us about the dangers of this endless pursuit. They understood that while progress and growth are important, an unchecked desire for more can lead to dissatisfaction and imbalance. Instead, they taught that self-discipline is what allows us to walk the middle path, one where we strive for improvement without losing sight of the joy already present in our lives. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, advised, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." This reflects the Stoic principle of moderation, not rejecting ambition, but tempering it with gratitude and contentment. Without self-discipline, it's easy to let our desires spiral into excess. We strive for a better job, a bigger house, or the latest gadget, believing these things will finally bring happiness. And yet, as soon as we achieve one goal, another quickly takes its place, leaving us feeling just as unfulfilled as before. This is the trap of always chasing more. It keeps you focused on what you lack rather than what you already have. But self-discipline offers a way out of this cycle. By cultivating moderation, the ability to recognize when enough is truly enough, you shift your focus from scarcity to abundance. And strangely, when you stop grasping for more, you often find yourself appreciating the richness of what's already in front of you. This isn't about abandoning ambition. It's about balancing your drive to improve with the ability to pause and say, "This is enough for now." I am grateful for this moment. One practical way to develop this balance is through gratitude journaling, a practice that aligns beautifully with Stoic teachings. Each day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand or extraordinary. They could be as simple as a warm cup of coffee, a meaningful conversation, or the comfort of your home. This habit helps train your mind to focus on the present moment and recognize the abundance already in your life, rather than being consumed by what's missing. Another way to cultivate moderation is by setting mindful boundaries on consumption. For example, you might decide to limit how often you shop for non-essential items, not as a form of deprivation, but as a way to reflect on whether those purchases truly add value to your life. By practicing restraint, you create space to appreciate what you already have, rather than constantly seeking something new to fill a void. Now, let's take a moment to reflect. Have you ever asked yourself, what would it feel like to have enough in this moment? Imagine just for a moment that you didn't need anything more to feel complete. Picture yourself looking around at your life as it is right now and finding contentment, not because it's perfect, but because it's enough. This simple shift in perspective, guided by self-discipline, can transform how you experience the present. It shows you that happiness isn't hidden in some far-off goal or future achievement. It's already here, waiting to be noticed. So, as you move forward, remember, striving for improvement is valuable, but so is the ability to pause and appreciate where you are. Self-discipline doesn't just help you achieve your goals, it ensures that in the process you don't miss out on the beauty of today. True happiness lies not in having everything, but in recognizing the fullness of what you already possess. Relationships are often the cornerstone of our lives, but let's face it, they can also be where our patience is tested the most. Think about a modern-day scenario. Maybe it's an argument with a family member where emotions run high, and before you know it, you've said something you regret. Or maybe frustration builds when your partner forgets something important or a friend doesn't respond the way you hoped. These moments of misunderstanding and impatience can create unnecessary tension, pulling us further from the connection we're trying to nurture. And here's where self-discipline can be transformative, not just as a way to manage our responses, but as a means to foster healthier, deeper relationships. The Stoics believed that how we treat others should not depend on how they treat us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." At first glance, this might sound harsh, but the message is clear. People will act according to their own nature, not necessarily ours. And while we can't control their behavior, we can control how we respond with patience, understanding, and compassion. This is where self-discipline plays a crucial role. Let's break this down. In any relationship, disagreements are inevitable. Think about the last time you had a conflict. What was your first reaction? Did you interrupt, raise your voice, or rush to defend yourself? These knee-jerk responses often escalate the situation, turning small misunderstandings into larger rifts. But self-discipline gives us the ability to pause. Instead of reacting instantly, we can take a moment to breathe, reflect, and choose a response that aligns with our values. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. For example, let's say your partner forgets to do something they promised. The natural reaction might be frustration or disappointment, and it's easy to let that emotion drive your response. But with self-discipline, you can pause and ask yourself, what's the best way to approach this? Will reacting out of anger strengthen our bond or create more distance? By choosing to approach the situation calmly, you not only diffuse potential conflict but also create space for understanding and empathy. Maybe they simply forgot because they were overwhelmed or distracted, something we've all experienced. The Stoics also emphasized the importance of perspective in relationships. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you are part of mankind. As a limb of a body, you can no more disconnect yourself from others than a finger can disconnect itself from the hand. This idea of interconnectedness encourages us to treat others with the same patience and compassion we'd want for ourselves. Self-discipline makes this possible by helping us step away from our immediate judgments and consider the bigger picture. When someone snaps at you or acts inconsiderately, instead of taking it personally, you might reflect on what they could be experiencing. Are they stressed, tired, or dealing with struggles you can't see? This shift in perspective allows you to respond with kindness even when it feels difficult. Now, think about how this applies to your closest relationships. Imagine pausing before reacting in a heated conversation, choosing to listen more than you speak, or showing understanding when someone falls short of your expectations. How might these small but intentional acts improve the way you connect with the people you care about most? Self-discipline in relationships isn't about stifling your emotions or becoming passive. It's about creating the space to act in ways that strengthen bonds rather than strain them. Take a moment to reflect. How might self-discipline improve your closest relationships? It could be as simple as practicing patience during an argument, or as profound as showing compassion when someone's behavior tests your limits. The Stoics believed that treating others with kindness, regardless of their actions, was a reflection of our own character. And through the practice of discipline, we can transform our relationships into spaces of greater understanding, trust, and connection. As we bring everything together, it becomes clear that self-discipline isn't just one piece of the puzzle. It's the very foundation of Stoic happiness. It's the discipline to master your impulses, aligning your actions with your values rather than fleeting desires. It's the discipline to embody virtue, striving for wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance even when the path is challenging. And it's the discipline to cultivate emotional stability, choosing thoughtful responses over reactive emotions, all while focusing on what is within your control. The Stoics remind us that happiness isn't something we stumble across in moments of indulgence or external success. It's something we cultivate through intentional, disciplined living. As Marcus Aurelius so aptly said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Through discipline, you gain the clarity to shape those thoughts, the strength to act in accordance with them, and the freedom to live a life of purpose and peace. But here's the beauty of it all. Self-discipline doesn't require grand, sweeping changes. It's built in small, everyday practices. The decision to pause before reacting, to approach a challenge with patience, or to focus on gratitude instead of comparison. These small acts, repeated over time, create a ripple effect that transforms not just your life, but your mindset, your relationships, and your overall sense of happiness. So, as we wrap up, I'll leave you with this question. What small act of discipline could bring you closer to true happiness today? Whether it's taking a moment to reflect before making a decision, resisting a momentary urge, or practicing gratitude for what you already have, start with one step. Remember, Stoic happiness is not about perfection. It's about consistency in striving to live with purpose and integrity. And with that, I'll share one more thought from Seneca. Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. Let this be your reminder that self-discipline isn't about restriction. It's about reclaiming your power, your choices, and ultimately your happiness. If you found value in this exploration of Stoic philosophy, consider subscribing for more insights like this. And don't forget to share your reflections in the comments. What steps are you taking to cultivate self-discipline in your own life? Let's learn and grow together, creating a community rooted in these timeless principles. Thank you for watching, and here's to building a life of true, lasting happiness.